just
อัว
hitting
ตูเดอะ
record
วอ
and
ชเชอร์
recording everything and then trying to edit into
วันนี้มา
a video doesn't
ตัวต้อง
work.
มา
You'll keep hearing this again and again. The more you
น้ำหนัก
watch
ขึ้นมาก
YouTube
มาย
education and
ต้องล
filmmaking
ดน้ำหนัก
tutorials, you'll hear people say story
ต้อ
matters
งมีความ
most.
พยายาม
Well,
มาก
that's
กว่านี้
great, but you need to understand how to craft a story. So in this video,
แต่ว่าตัวยังไม่ได้
storytelling is going to be one aspect that we're going to cover, and I'm going to show you how I created a simple story out of a vlog. Because if you can tie story into the vlogs that you're creating, it's going to become more engaging for your audience. If you have a setup, you have a history, you have a journey, and then there is a climax with a resolution, when you put all those pieces into a YouTube video, your audience is going to be more sucked into the video, and then they're going to want to watch another one of your videos. This is why some creators do so well. You don't think about the storytelling elements because it's just super engaging and you want to keep watching. But if you take a step back and you look at these big creators, you'll notice that these
มา
same
ทำดูเป็นความรู้
storytelling
ของตัว
elements
เอง
go across every video on their channels. Look at someone like Casey Neistat, or you look at Yes Theory. They are using storytelling elements to craft their videos. And if you take a step back and look at every one of their videos, you can look at the structure and understand that, oh, that's their hook, or that's their setup, or that's the build up to the climax, and that's the resolution. Like, these components, they seem very easy, especially if someone's just saying, here's storytelling, A, B, C, D. It seems easy to do, but to put that in practice is actually much harder. And it's a skill that you have to learn. It's something you have to practice over and over and over. And part of the reason I started my second channel is to have a place where I can create more story-driven content and not just do tutorials. Like, these are great. I love helping you guys. I love creating tutorials. But I originally got into filmmaking and creating YouTube videos because I wanted to just create and tell stories. Now, if you're always teaching and you're never telling stories, then you start to lose that skill of telling stories. And before I got into YouTube, I was a documentary filmmaker. I did a lot of reality TV. And so there was a lot of story that I was working. I'd work with producers, and we'd be trying to craft the story as we're dealing with real situations. And that's essentially what you're doing. And you need to craft a story around these different elements that you're filming so that they're engaging for a viewer to watch. And there's something that someone's going to stick around, hit subscribe, hit like, watch your entire video, and watch more videos. Because that's what's most important on YouTube. If you can master that element, get people to watch longer, watch more videos, then you'll find success. And all of us are on here on YouTube because we want to grow following and we want to build this into a sustainable business that is something that we can do full time and be able to keep creating and enjoy creating, because creating is fun. And once you've learned your skills and you know where you're going with your channel, being able to create and make money from it, it's an awesome career. And there's also really positive things that you can do with video. You can really tell some stories that will make an impact in the world. And there's just so many different ways that you can approach YouTube so that you can make an impact. So I know that was a huge, long intro, but in this video, what we're going to go into is how you vlog from start to finish. And we're going to go through every step of the process. You're going to come alongside me and we're going to make a vlog together. All right, guys, let's get in.
Exercise.
Step one of the process is the idea phase. Now, before we get into the idea phase, I just want to ask you guys, this is around story-driven vlog content. If you're interested in seeing a breakdown like this for, say, a tutorial or a review, I'd love to hear from you guys, so go down in the comments and just tell me what style of videos you'd like to see an entire breakdown of. Let's get into the idea phase. So, before you even go out and start shooting, you really need to come up with the concept of what it is that you're going to go shoot. When I started the process of wanting to create this Butler Peak vlog, I didn't just pick up my camera and go out to this trail and start shooting. If I started in that way, I would have no idea where this video was going to go. And I think that's key. Obviously, there is that element of surprise when you're creating content, but you want to have a trajectory. You want to have a goal of what you're planning to do in your video. And when I first started this channel, if you go way back in history, like 500 videos ago, I did a lot of vlogs, and a lot of times I would hit record and just start shooting, and then just see where it goes, and then cut all that together, and those videos weren't that entertaining. I mean, yeah, if you want to come along for the journey and you just want to like see my day, like that. Some people watched it, a lot of my family, my grandma loves those, but like, that's not going to build you a bigger audience. You want to approach your video with a goal in mind. So when I started coming up with concepts for my second channel, my goal with that channel is to tell stories from adventures. That's kind of where I'm positioning that channel. Obviously, it's a new channel, I'm just playing around, but this video specifically, I wanted to find somewhere that I could hike to that would be unique and have this ending, like have something at the end that makes it worth the journey. Like I didn't want to just go down a random hiking trail and then get to the end and be like, great, we finished the hiking trail. That was fun. I enjoyed a hike. That's not an interesting story for a viewer. There has to be an obstacle. There has to be not only obstacles, but there has to be somewhere that we're going. So I started doing research just online. I started looking up the area that I was going to go shoot this video in, which is Big Bear. So I started typing in, Big Bear hiking spots. Now from there, I started just reading a ton of blogs, looking for different and unique places that might be interesting to film. Obviously, when you start typing in things like Big Bear hiking, you're going to find a ton of trails and there's going to be a lot of different places to go. So as I started doing this research, there's a few things that started popping up. And I saw this Butler Peak lookout pop up. I was like, that looks like a great spot. I went on YouTube, I started doing some research, and I found videos of people driving their Jeep up to the Butler Peak. Well, right there, I'm like, well, that's not that interesting, because if that's super easily accessible, that might not be a video that I want to go after. These were all older videos that I was seeing, and then I noticed that there was an article recently that showed that the road had been closed because of winter damage. All right, that becomes more of an interesting story. I have this goal to get to. It's this longest trail. It's all uphill, so there's some challenge there, and the road's washed out. So this might be an interesting story to go after, because there are some things in place that make it so that I can tell a story about the journey from beginning to end. Now this is where research is super important. I spent a couple hours just reading articles and blogs about this hike, trying to figure out best routes, what to expect, and also just current conditions and history behind the Butler Peak Fire Lookout. Because all of that is going to come into play when you're actually shooting the vlog. Now you might think that's crazy. You're spending all this time just coming up with an idea, but that's important when it comes to creating videos that people actually want to watch. You need to spend time on the idea and creation phase. And you might waste half a day trying to find a good story to tell, but once you can find a good story to tell, something that people might be interested in, it's going to set you apart from the people who are just hitting record and shooting the day. Like, that's the biggest thing here. We're trying to create interest. We're trying to create stories that people will want to watch, and then they'll want to watch more videos. Now, step 2 in the process of creating a vlog is planning. Now, I did a whole video around script writing and outlining process, and I'll link to that in the description. But let's go through my process for this video specifically. So let's go over to the whiteboard real quick, and let me just walk you through a basic story structure. So,
they immediately launch the countdown. It's coming up the middle. The cross is on the mark. He hits him on the goal.
Story is made up of a series of events. The first thing is your hook. And we're talking specifically YouTube here because we want to get people interested in your video and then stay to the end and then watch another video. So you want to start with a hook. First 10 to 15 seconds, this is something exciting that you either pull from what happens in the vlog, or it's something that you plan out so that it gets people hooked into your video. So for my video, I use this opening drone shot, which gives people an idea of what's coming in the climax of this video. So your first act is basically setting up what's going to happen in this vlog. So in this first act, you want to set up your problem or your conflict, and you also want to give some backstory. And this is basically what happens before you start your journey. So for my video, I set up that I'm trying to get to the peak of this mountain at this fire lookout, and I also set up in this first act some history behind the fire lookout and just fire lookouts in general. Now in storytelling, there's what's called an inciting incident, and this is what sends the character on the journey. So if there's something specific that sends you on the journey of this vlog, this is where you add it in. Now the second act of your story is your journey, and this is where you have a series of events that either take you closer to your objective or different challenges that you face along the journey. So the idea is that you have different obstacles in your way. So this is all the exciting part of the vlog. This is the meat of the vlog. This is you doing the thing that you set out to do. So for me, in the context of this video, it's the challenge of the mountain, it's the challenge of being in the direct sunlight, the conflict that comes with a road that's washed out, like all these different elements that help drive the story forward, but also make it harder for me to get to my goal. Now your third act is going to be your climax and your resolution. And that's where your story reaches the crucial moment. You finally get to the place, or the thing finally happens that you set out to do. So for this, it's that moment when I get up to the fire hut and I'm almost there. That is the climax, that's the peak, and then the resolution is what happens once I actually reach that moment. So a basic diagram of how your story should be structured for a vlog is you have your hook, grab your audience attention, you have your opening exposition, your history, your conflict. That's your first act. Then you have your second act, which is all the obstacles and different things that come along on the journey. You have your climax, which is the peak. You finally get to that thing that you're set up to do at the very beginning. And then you have your resolution, you tie everything up. And then for YouTube, you add this last little bit that gets people to go watch another video. So you try to give your viewers something at the end that makes them watch the next video in your series or the next video on your channel. Okay, so the challenge or the conflict of this story is, will I get to the summit and what will I find at the summit? That is what I set up right at the beginning of the video. It gives you that starting point of where this video is going and why you should be interested and engaged. So beyond just setting up this conflict, I also need to set up the history. So a little bit of information about the Butler Peak specifically, and also just fire lookouts in general. That gives you, the viewer, the context of what my goal is, fencing history behind the trail, and just fire lookouts in general. Now, from that point to the climax, you got to build story beats. One of the story beats that I was thinking through was the journey from my house to the trailhead. That's going to be one story beat. And then the trail itself needs to be a story beat. Different conflicts that I may encounter, and this is kind of loose because when you're creating a vlog, it's kind of like documentary or reality in a way where you're not going to plan out every little thing. Now, some people might have more structured vlogs where, yes, you can plan out every aspect of your video. In terms of doing a video where it's more reality-based, where you're experiencing something, you're going to have these rough outlines of things that you want to capture, and as you shoot the video, it's going to evolve and change. That's just the nature of creating reality style content. So the next story beat is the journey up, so actually mountain biking up the path. And I changed it from hiking to mountain biking after doing my research. Originally I was gonna hike this trail, but I thought it was gonna be more interesting to mountain bike it. Personally, I just wanted to mountain bike it anyways. And it also saves me time because I'm going to be shooting a lot while I'm up there, and on a mountain bike it's a little bit quicker, especially on the way down. So the next story beat that I want to cover is actually approaching the fire lookout, and the climax of the story is when I get to the fire lookout, and then the resolution is actually finally getting to the top and finding what's there. So this is my plan, and what I did was I put it in my phone. I just have it in my notepad. That's what I use to create all my videos. And I wrote down these different story beats just so I was reminded of what I'm doing. I also wrote down any notes about the trail itself, anything that I want to remember to talk about, so that I have it all in one place. Now, when it comes to your creation process, you got to find a system that works for you. For me, on my iPhone, the notepad, it's the easiest way for me to create videos and just keep writing notes and add things, because on your notepad you can not only create notes, but you can drop in photos, you can drop in different elements that you find, so that when you're actually planning and scripting and coming up with the process, you can put everything in one place. I've found for me that if I start trying to use different apps and different pieces of software to do all of this planning, that I end up getting lost in all of it and I don't use any of it. So my notepad and my whiteboard right here are my two best friends when it comes to planning and creating videos. So now that I have a plan, I just need to pick a day that I'm gonna go do this, give myself the day to actually shoot, and the freedom to actually shoot and not be rushed, and go shoot it. That's the next process. Now, we're gonna get into gear next. I just wanna talk about this element of time, because I have a 5-month-old. She's upstairs sleeping right now. I'm shooting this video at 6 a.m., trying to get stuff done before she wakes up and wants to go play. And then you gotta remember that life is more than just YouTube. Like, there is more than just one priority in making videos. Some of us, if you are single and this is all you're doing right now, take advantage of the fact that you can put more time into creating videos. The more time that you can dedicate to the process, the faster you're gonna grow and the more you're gonna find success. Now, if you have a job, if you have family, you're just gonna have to set aside time to make this happen. And this is also why planning, scripting is gonna be even more important, because if you're shooting videos that people aren't gonna wanna watch, you're just spinning your wheels and wasting your time. Whereas if you spend time and really focus in the content that you're producing, then yeah, the one day that you have to shoot your video, you'll know that you're going to shoot a video that people are actually interested and that they want to watch. And you won't go 5 years down the road without any growth on your channel because you know that you're setting yourself up for success. So for me, I chose a day where I could go up to Big Bear, shoot this video. My parents have a cabin up there, so I was going to go for the entire day and spend the night. That gives me the flexibility to go create and not having the pressure of time of me needing to drive back home, rush back to do things. Part of the process of creating YouTube videos and creating vlogs is setting yourself up so that you can actually do the whole process. So if you need to wake up early before your job or before kids are up, then do that so that you can do the idea creation phase. If you need to set aside a day to go shoot, do that, because the more that you think through the process and you actually give yourself the proper time you need to make a video, the easier it's going to be for you and the more creative you can be. And that's the key. We are in a creative endeavor. We are here to shoot videos that people are going to want to watch, and you want to be creative, which is the fun aspect of creating videos. Now let's get into the next step of the process for me, which is grabbing the gear that I need.
ชีวิตสบายแค่ปลุกบัตร SO Smile กับเราเช็คแต้มได้ทันทีแลกของ
to film. So for this vlog specifically, I used a bunch of different pieces of gear. However, you need to just pick your camera system and what lenses you're going to bring. If you're just using your phone, just use your phone. Sometimes that's the best tool that you have is the phone in your pocket. And in this video, you'll see that I actually shot a bunch of segments using my phone because I was riding my bike and I just wanted to get something quick. Could have used a GoPro, but I forgot. But the gear that I brought along was my camera. I brought along a couple prime lenses because I wanted to get super shallow depth of field. I wanted to get that cinematic look. I brought along a drone. I brought along a point and shoot, the Sony ZV-1. It's kind of overkill because I was using my phone too, but the Sony ZV-1 is what I used at the beginning of the video, and I ended up leaving it in the car because I didn't want to actually bring it on the trail. But it was a good camera to grab some quick bits with. I brought ND filters for my lenses because, again, I'm trying to get that cinematic look, and some of the tools that I use for my gear is ND filters, prime lenses. I brought along a gimbal because I knew I wanted to get super smooth shots. I didn't want to shoot everything handheld. I brought enough batteries and cards to last me the day. And then I brought my computer because at night I wanted to review the footage and make sure there wasn't anything that I needed to reshoot. And that's something that might come up when you're actually producing your content. You might need to reshoot little elements. It's not a bad thing, but as you're crafting your story and when you're looking at your footage, if you're in a situation where you can go out and reshoot something, maybe you need to get a reaction from yourself or you need to set something up a little bit better, go out and do that, even if you're not in the exact same location. So for example, if you were doing something in like a city environment and you forgot to set up a scene properly, then you could go find like an alleyway or a wall, something that might look like it was in that scene, and go reshoot that setup and then tie it in and it will look seamless. You just need to find something that has a similar background to where you were shooting the original video. So because I was going to Big Bear, which is a mountain town, it's a few hours away from where I live, I needed to bring my computer so I could sit down and go through all the footage and kind of look at it before I drove back home. And the backpack that I use for all my gear is my Shimoda X50. That holds all of this gear, plus my mountain biking gear, some water, a ton of food. Like, you gotta take care of yourself while you're out shooting. And that's one reason why I personally use a Shimoda bag. It's because it allows me to put a big water bottle on the side. One thing that, a lot of people don't talk about is the things that you need outside the camera gear. So when you're developing your kit of what you want to bring with you for your vlogs, you got to think through like yourself. Like, what else do you need? Food, water, maybe rain gear, hats. Like, there's different things that you would bring with you to do your adventures or whatever it is that you're shooting, and you have to make sure you bring that on top of your camera gear. You don't want to get stuck in a situation where you don't have enough water. On this trip, I brought 2 massive things of water that weighed me down. And weight is also something you're going to have to take into consideration. My backpack was heavy with all this gear. And sometimes I don't bring all of this. This video specifically, I knew I had more time to be able to shoot this, and I took a lot of breaks on the way up just because I was carrying a backpack that weighed a ton. So you have to think through realistically, what can you bring with you? When I'm doing more of an expedition, so last year I went to Ecuador and climbed some of the tallest peaks down there. I brought very little gear for that, and focused mainly on lightweight gear because I needed more gear to protect me from the elements when I'm at like 19,000 feet. That's insane. And now that I have a second channel, I can revisit all that footage. I've never actually produced anything from those videos. And I think that's topic for another video on this channel. And that is what happens when you don't have a story. Because I shot 2 weeks of footage and I didn't go through this planning and idea stage, and I ended up with a bunch of footage that doesn't tie together. So now I have to come up with a way to put all this footage together and make a story out of it. And that's something I'm trying to help you guys avoid with this video, because personally I've done this. I've shot multiple weeks of footage. I've gone out with like this epic situation and ended up falling flat because I didn't get the key elements that I needed to tell my story. So I really want you guys to think through the process. I want you to think through actually the idea and preparation stage, because that's going to help you find success. And the more that you do this, the more that you plan out videos and create your story structure, the easier it's going to get, and it'll become natural. At first it might seem like a lot of work, but after you do a few videos, you'll start getting in a rhythm and you'll be like, yep, I need a conflict, I need a resolution, I need something that I'm going towards. What is that? Boom, 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 figure it out. And you won't necessarily need to spend so much time on the research phase, because you'll instinctively be able to set up these story elements. It's going to help you craft a better vlog. Alright, so let's get into shooting the video. Now, this is where a lot of people start. So you can see how much preparation there goes into before you even hit record. Whenever you're shooting a vlog, you really want to shoot more than you're actually going to use. So one of the key things that I always suggest is to set up everything that you do and do it on camera. Because you may or may not use that as part of your video, but having all those elements when it gets into the editing is going to help you actually craft your story. So when I woke up that morning to shoot this video, 6 a.m., I needed to get my gear together, so I turned on the camera and shot just a few things as I was setting up my gear.
Okay, so the goal today is to go up to Big Bear, which there's this fire lookout. It's like up on top of a mountain that overlooks all of Big Bear. And it's just this really cool structure.
Now I also grabbed a bunch of B-roll, and B-roll is the footage that's going to help tie your video together. And you can use B-roll in so many different ways, whether it's on top of when you're talking, or use it for transitions with a little bit of music, or add a voiceover, add some B-roll, some music. Like, you can tie B-roll in so many different ways. And one of the things you want to do is get coverage. You want to overshoot when it comes to B-roll. I'm always shocked because I shoot so much footage, and then when I get to the editing phase, I use almost every single shot. Because the more coverage that you get, the more flexibility you have to craft your story, and you can do things like quicker cuts to just like get little hits of things. And when I shot this, I didn't know if I was going to use this. I didn't know if I was going to start, at the trailhead versus at home, but it's good to grab these different elements. Now, as I drove to Big Bear, I grabbed a bunch of footage of the drive, whether it was out the side window, the front window, perspective of my hand, and I did this throughout the drive. It was a 2.5-hour drive to get to Big Bear, and as the light changed in different ways and the different roads that I went on, I just grabbed some B-roll shots, and I shot all this using the ZV-1. Now, when the road changed and there was no one on the road, that's when I was like, okay, this is a key element that I'm going to probably use. And so this shot right here, I shot a super long shot of this road because I thought potentially this could be used as a time lapse if I wanted to add that element into it. So one thing you should be thinking about is time change in your videos. Are there parts where you're going to need to show a time shift, like you need to show time moving forward? And time lapses are a great way to do that. So transition scenes can be as quick as just a simple time lapse. You watch a lot of Casey Neistat videos, he always put his camera down and did a quick time lapse because it's just a quick transition that shows the passage of time. Now there's a whole section when I met up with my parents, went to their house, and I didn't film any of that because I didn't really think it was relevant to the story. The next beat that I wanted to capture, because I was looking at my plan, was the trailhead. And so as I was approaching the trailhead, I was on a dirt road, I pulled out the camera and I started shooting just me talking to camera again, setting up what's coming, what to expect, what my challenges are. You need to think through everything that's coming and talk about those elements. And you want to try to do this in a way where you're not always repeating the same information over and over. So when I was at home, I said one bit of information. Now, I don't want to say that same exact thing when I'm in the car. You could repeat some stuff, and there are times where, yes, I would suggest doing the same kind of information over and over, but you're only going to use one in the edit, because you want to keep the story moving forward. So you always want to be thinking, what did I say last? What do I need to say next that's going to help keep moving this story forward, getting me towards my goal? And also, what are some interesting things that are happening right now that makes this moment unique and why I'm capturing it. So this was a great opportunity to talk about the trail because I'm about to get to the trail. So some of the key things that I found in my research was that the road got washed out, that you have to park the car at the bottom and you have to hike, the 5 to 6 miles to get to the summit. Any information that came up in research, this was a great opportunity to talk about what to expect. So originally you could four-wheel all the way to Butler Peak and you could park down below it and be able to walk up to this fire hut. And because the road got washed out a few years ago, they've shut it down. So basically you have to park at the bottom and then get yourself up. It's about a 10 to 12 mile hike. And I don't really know what to expect from this trip. So as you're getting into a situation in your vlog, you can always set it up by putting out there what you're expecting and maybe what you're scared of or what you're worried about or what you're excited for. What are some emotions that you're feeling right now before you go into that situation? Okay, so now that I'm at the trail, this is the fun part. This is kind of the whole purpose of creating vlogs, is taking someone on a journey. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was going to encounter. So as I started doing the trail, I started shooting different elements that were of interest to me. So when you're in a situation like this where you don't know what to expect and it's all new, just keep an eye out for things that might be interesting that help tell your story. This video is about getting to the fire lookout. So I need to find elements as I'm going up this trail that talk about, the trail itself, the conditions, maybe what I'm feeling, maybe what I'm worried about, if I got lost, if I'm not sure of things. Is there any conflict that's coming up as I'm going along on this journey? That's the elements that I want to capture because those are the elements that are interesting. And also because I'm doing a mountain biking video, I want to talk about the trail. So part of what you want to do when you're creating a story-driven vlog is think through your audience. So who is your audience? What would they actually care about? So for this style of video, I was catering it towards people who are interested in outdoor style content. So what are those audience members interested in? They're going to be interested in conditions of the trail, what I was feeling, like things that were going on at that moment. They're not interested in the cameras that I'm using. They're not interested in the drone and using my drone. So I'm not going to shoot video of me playing around with my drone and almost crashing my drone. Like my audience here on this channel cares about making YouTube videos, but my audience that I was catering this towards was not necessarily people who are interested in the creation process. It was more people who want to watch an adventure film, or people who are interested in mountain biking on this trail. Kind of serves two purposes here, because somebody who might be interested in this trail will watch this video to get an experience of it because they might want to go do it. And also someone who's just interested in watching adventure style vlogs would be interested in watching this because it's a vlog about an adventure. So I'm not going to stop and talk about my camera and my gimbal and different things that I was working with because they have no place in this story. So you got to really think through of who your audience is and avoid creating content that your audience wouldn't be interested in. So some of the things that I encountered on this trail was, the sun super hot beating down on me. I encountered a lot of areas where it was washed out. The hill itself was steep and it was a long trek all the way to the top. So those are all conflicts that I wanted to capture and talk about. Now, beyond just me talking to camera, which I did just using my iPhone, I had it point like this, filming myself as I was writing. It's more interesting because it's in the process. So beyond that, I shot a ton of B-roll. So I would stop at different sections along the trail and shoot different batches of B-roll. So first, I stopped. I just wanted to get the forest that I was going through. So I really focused on just the elements of nature. So getting some of these gimbal shots. Then the next time I stopped was at a washout. So I got a few different elements here. I got gimbal shots of the washout. I put the camera on a tripod. I shot myself walking through the scene. And then I got some detail elements of my bike. Now this is key. You want to shoot a variety of content. You don't want to just shoot the same thing over and over. With your B-roll, you want to be getting a ton of coverage. So you want to be getting different angles. You want to be getting different shot sizes. You want to be able to get reactions as well as POV of what you're doing. So if you haven't seen my video on how to shoot better B-roll, I go through this idea of shooting B-roll. And that's a great follow-up video to this because it talks through this idea of just shooting variety in more detail. So I'll put a link to that down below in the description. More homework for you to watch after this one. So it did take me a while to get up the trail because I was stopping and shooting and getting all these different elements as I was going along. Now, when I got to the fire lookout, I turned this corner and boom, it was right there, and I could see it, and I was close. And I knew at that point I needed to stop and shoot a scene here, because the approach to the fire lookout is a key element to help tell the story. That's going to be a build-up moment, because you'll see this is the shot that I wanted to build up to. I got this drone shot of the fire lookout. It's an epic shot. If I turn the corner and said, hey, there's the fire lookout, and then I show this shot, there's no build-up, there's no anticipation, the climax and the final moment, the reason that we all came up on this journey together. So I wanted to build this up. So here, I actually spent some time and thought through, how am I going to build up to this fire lookout reveal moment? So I shot a bunch of different elements as I was moving up to the fire lookout. I got the moment where I had to set down the bike. I did another talking bit to the camera that's set up. I'm almost there. I did some different B-roll shots going up to the fire lookout, and then I got reaction shots of me as
และ
well
เวลา
as
ต้องจริงจัง
some
กับมันมาก
shots
แล้วนะ
where the fire lookout was obscured in a way where you see me moving through the frame,
80
and I'm getting there, but it's not fully showing the entire thing yet.